That's not good.
Welcome back to the Torque Test channel. Anything you attach to your impact wrench that's not just a plain socket robs power. And if your impact wrench makes a lot of torque, that's even more torque loss from each one of those blows transmitted through those attachments like extensions as we've shown, and swivels like today's topic, universal impact sockets, which somehow in today's world range from $86 to $1,026 for comparable half-inch sets. 3 years ago, I bought some half-inch drive universals, all the same size, to test against the snap-on I had been using. Then 2 years ago, we had some of our left-hand test bolts we use for impact wrenches made up with 19mm hex drive incorporated into them, and bought 9 more brands of 3/8 impact universals, including Williams, Gearwrench, Sunex, Capri, Pneumatic, Matco, and more, to test our new setup. Then flash forward to now, present year, walking around Harbor Freight. Noticed icon versions, can't say I've seen before. They only had 3 reviews, so must be pretty new, and remembered, hey, we tested those a while back, didn't we? Today is a culmination of all the data we've taken over the last couple years looking at universal impact sockets, including Snap-on, which I have long used, and Astro Pinless, so I'm bringing some bias into this. Hopefully instruments can help balance that, but see the description and comments below from others who own and use these brands every day for real-world feedback, which combined probably beats whatever we have to show you today, which is going to be how much torque does each brand's design lose, and which brands are going to come out the other end of testing bruised, bullied, and broken, and which still work fine. We're here to look at precisely those two things, and at times investigate why some of that happens. Half-inch universal impact sockets. We got a little collection of half-inch drive universal impact sockets here, including Snap-on pinned, who will be taking on pinless options from Matco, Gearwrench, and Astro. All of these are around the same 3.2 inches in length for this socket size, save for the nano pinless here, which, yeah, to its name, it's 2.66 inches long or so. It does suffer for that in some ways. Max degrees of angle for this 6-lobed pinless design comes in around 25 to 26 degrees, while the others are going to see like 29, 30 degrees at times. The Gearwrench X-Core pinless impressing at a near 32 degrees here, and you can tell it does seem pretty nice. We use air impacts for this because it allows us to test back-to-back between multiple attachments without worrying about battery charge levels, just a tool regulated to the same pressure every time. As a baseline run, the shallow socket is going to make 420 foot-pounds here in a 10-second test. Up first is Snap-on, because how do we not talk about the $1,000 set? SAE or metric, it's not pretty, $85 a socket. I bought all of mine off of an old coworker, but either these have gone up or I just got a good deal. It is USA made, so we use the same process as when we tested universal swivel attachments. Hold the tool at a rough predetermined angle. In this case, it's simply the tool rotated until the air hose hits a block that we clamp there, and do 3 tests, median of 3 on screen. Let's see how it does. $321 foot-pounds down from 420, about a 100 foot-pound loss. You can see why we want ever more powerful impacts if a short swivel socket here loses around 30%. Now, is that 30% bad? Is it good? Well, let's see. In the tool truck USA made race, we have Matco. Not to feel left out, a metric set of these is $790 or $79 a socket. These are pinless though, and they're butter smooth. Pinless means instead of using a pin to connect the drive end to the socket end, it doesn't have one. Different brands use different designs. Let's see how Matco's works. Pretty good, it seems. 350 foot-pounds, not going to get all that torque back, but any extra on top is always welcome. Up next is also pinless, but not from the tool truck. It's the Astro 78244 Nano Universal set, for the main reason of this set costs about as much as one of the individual sockets from the Snap-on set. These are basically too stiff out of the box, but they at least stay where you point them, I guess. Here it is. $342, not beating the Matco, but so far the pinless guys are on top. Now, is that because they have more of a contact patch? Let's find out. This is the Gearwrench X-Core pinless, $190 as a set, $19 a socket, made in Taiwan like that Nano set as well. Here it is. 309 and really laying over there and flattening out. Well, all these flatline a lot. It's just how attachments annoyingly work. But the beginning compared to the end here, we noticed the more we tested this gear wrench, the less it would make. 309 becomes 300, which becomes 294 then. And at this point, we basically put these sockets on a series of 4 increasingly powerful half-inch impacts, air and cordless included, for 10-second runs forward and reverse, trigger on and off. Really, unlike some of these sockets coming up, these all don't feel or look all that bad from the outside. The snap-on still feels okay. The Matco does feel okay as well, and it's not too floppy yet. The Gearwrench X-Core, already floppy after the same amount of testing. It's going to require some hand guidance to get onto some of the bolts that you point it towards. And the Nano maybe just broken in a bit, less offensively hard to articulate now. It's when looking on the inside, we see the wear. We're being a bit picky here looking on the inside to assess this wear, so keep in mind this is where subjective ratings come in. You can assess these yourself as you see fit, but the snap-on essentially has the only pin design. You'd expect to see more wear here. We're getting low to mid 40s in hardness, which isn't like low for an impact socket, but isn't high either. The pin is much harder, and yet we see very little wear here. From what we can see, this is a 9 out of 10. The Matco looks like minimal burrs and mushroomed over material, but it does have a bit of peening on each of those lobes. This is getting a 7 out of 10. The drive end is 51 hardness and the socket 43, both acceptable, but you can see why some marks are left on those lobes. The Nano Pinless was a royal pain to cut open, so a lot of the slot marks here are from a cutoff wheel, but there's also visible wear on the hex points that aren't cut through here, though not very dramatic. It gets a 7 out of 10 as well, maybe an 8 if you're being generous, somewhere in between there. Lobes are around 50 hardness, socket 47, 48. That does spell for a more equal pairing to hammer against each other, so we're saying an 8 here. Again, it is subjective. The gear wrench has seen better days, and we've seen this on their X-Core universal adapter. Doesn't seem to be an improved design on the socket. The lobes are just not going to live a very long life. Modeled after the Matco design, but not the same. These little humps inside that hammer against the lobes are really doing a number. It's a mixture of two things, we think. Hardness, the drive end little housing is beyond 10 points harder than the lobes it hammers against. 57.5, that's rock hard, hitting up against those softer spline looking bits. And it does have a wind up. It's jackhammering them with this amount of travel. Other sockets do have some wiggle room, they do, but not usually this much. Even pins should have more, I think, and it's not crazy. Those are our thoughts at least. Each socket did receive the same amount of timed impacting on and off. So for half inch, when you get the highest torque transfer, you're also getting a 7 in durability in our own assessment. The next highest in torque, you get an 8 here, and third highest in torque, you get a 9 here in subjective durability. Price is totally different in that story, but in performance, it seems like depending on what you want to weight here, torque transfer, or how often you'll use that lifetime warranty that these all have, they're pretty close. Now, given those results, we wanted to add a bunch more brands into the mix when we tried out 3/8, which we did so after having a hybrid 19mm hex sticking out the top of a reverse, now class 12.9 test bolt that we had made. All of these sockets are brand new and more brands to work through. Gray Pneumatic, Williams, Capri, Gearwrench, but they're pinned option now. Sunex, Icon that we just picked up, so forgive me if I move through these a bit faster. In 3/8, these plateau even harder. They're basically done making beans by 5 seconds, and if you've ever used swivel sockets, you'll know what I'm talking about. A few seconds in, you can tell it's not going anywhere. Same sort of setup, regulated 3/8 inch air impact now, able to do back-to-back testing without battery level changes. Then we do some durability testing with air and 3/8 cordless for timed intervals. With the impact making here, 283 foot-pounds with a standard shallow impact socket. In order of price is up first, Powerbuilt, an incredibly affordable $5 a universal socket, though can't seem to find their metric set in stock lately, just SAE. This 19mm we did find though makes this. $217 foot-pounds, not a whole lot, 76.7% of a regular socket, though did work after testing with air impacts in this 3/8 mid-torque for 4 cycles of 10 seconds with on and off trigger time. Quite a few of these are going to be getting 10 out of 10, no problems after testing. We'll cover the ones that aren't the case. Surprisingly, in order of price, Gearwrench is up next, just $6 a socket, 90 to 92 bucks a set, but the largest set on the day too is 15 pieces all the way up to 22mm without skips. I think that's pretty cool. This is their pinned universal set because their X-Core doesn't seem to like us very much. 236 foot-pounds, 83.4% of a standard socket. Nice. Next up in price is the Astro Nano Pinless, this time 3/8, one of the few pinless designs available in 3/8, $62 a set, $6.20 a socket. Let's see how it does. $239, right in line with the Gearwrench, 84.5%, pretty good. Next up is Capri. This is their $96 12-piece set, $8 a socket. These are made in Taiwan, like the rest of these have been so far, and are a pin design. $247, very nice, 87.3%. Though, and we don't know if this helped it or not.
Stuck. It won't move up now.
We couldn't get 3 tests to show the median on this one. A hammer can free this, but it'll go back to that stuck position a lot of the times. This gets a 3 out of 10 in durability. It's not broken. It will still drive something, but it didn't make it to the durability testing. Here's the Sunex, $92 a set, which on a 10-piece set makes for $9.20 a piece. This was Taiwan when purchased. A lot of Sunex is moving over to China in the last few months. Unsure if Universals will be on that list, but they do have a good reputation. Here it is. $229, that's the second lowest so far, and this one had a very similar experience to the Capri. We got 2 test runs out of it, hung up and won't move into most positions any longer. Some very clear mushrooming over on the ball swivel. People often cite this as being one of the main downsides for pinned over pinless, small diameter round pin thing beating up against something mostly flat. But in my experience, take that for what it's worth. Sunex half-inch universals have been very good to me, so didn't expect to see this on their 3/8 after a couple uses. Moving on to Pneumatic, sort of a big OG name in the impact sockets game. They make a lot of cool stuff. These are made in Taiwan like the rest of these so far. $130 a set, $13 a socket. These we did find to be tanks, no visible wear from testing, but yeah, for whatever reason, 197 foot-pounds down from 283, 69.9%. Stepping up the price again is Williams, known for making sockets for Snap-on, but these being their universals, they don't make those in the USA, you guessed it, Taiwan. $155 a set though, that is $15.50 a socket. This is that. $223 foot-pounds, 78.8% of a standard socket. That's about average. And this one fell victim to the doesn't like to swivel very much anymore thing. 3/8 swivels are just more prone to failure, or at least it would appear with modern tools. Not as bad on this guy, sort of developed a dimple here once we worked it out of that spot. This gets a 4 out of 10, can still move it around, just not very freely now, didn't make it into the durability testing. Next up, before we head to present day, are some USA made options. If you feel like dropping $556 on 10 3/8 universals for $55.60 a piece, there's always the butter smooth Matco Pinless as an option. Let's see it. That's quite good. Still moved pretty freely as well, and did make it through durability testing, though with a few scars that we can visibly see, like the half-inch did, sort of peening over those lobes slightly. This one gets a 9 out of 10 in our own subjective durability testing. But I know what you're thinking. Torque guy, $55 a socket? That's just too cheap. Well, Snap-on's got you covered with their $744 set of 3/8 universals. $62 a socket, USA made like the Matco, but pinned. Here it is. $266 foot-pounds, 94%, the only socket even near the 90s so far. This is right about when we start getting comments that this channel bends the knee to Snap-on. We're in their pocket as if we made this socket ourselves, or the dyno is in on this whole thing. The fact is, embarrassingly, we have no idea what the Snap-on secret sauce is. I have it on good authority. They use 4140 chromoly on almost all their impact sockets and impact accessories, so that's not exclusive. Maybe it's this not very hard tempering they do that somehow doesn't leave the socket all beat up, because this also made it through durability testing, no issues. Usually we can figure this stuff out, but being honest here, have no clue. It'd frankly be more entertaining if these did do terribly. They don't. And finally, we've made it present day. Noticed some Icon swivels in store. Thought, why not? And bought them. These are pinned, made in Taiwan, like most of these. $110 a set though. That makes for $11 a piece. They're not the cheapest. They're on the upper half of pricing on our list of 10 brands in 3/8 so far, but they do look good and feel very nice. Really easy articulation and movement. Pretty easy to bring things up to speed. Just throw the 3/8 impact on and calibrate it to 283 foot-pounds, and away we go for Icon. Well, that was the plan. I'll show you all the testing we did here. First test, it slipped off the test bolt head, as you saw, from a fair amount of chattering around. So decided to hold it in the opposite angle direction, same amount of angle, just opposite way. That's where we get its torque transfer run here. 212 foot-pounds, about 75% of a standard shallow socket, a bit below average, I guess. From there, we tested these sockets straight on, which we do to check these in case it's wildly different, which would be interesting. But no news there, 212 foot-pounds makes the same. So we decided to get some close-up shots of it in case it jumps off again to show you guys, and do our usual 10 seconds total forward, 10 seconds total reverse, several trigger pulls each we do for one round of durability testing, and it didn't like that.
Well, that's not good.
Straight on is fine, but rotated like a universal might, it broke in half like none of the last 13 examples have. And we haven't swapped to a different impact yet either. Was planning on getting another torque transfer shot held at the original angle. From what we can tell, hardness doesn't seem to be an issue plaguing this tool though. Sure, 51 HRC is high-ish for impact accessories, not too bad, especially when the body is 50.5 here and the pin is not much further away from that. They seem like a good pairing. There may just not be enough meat on this guy. The inner hole being close to the outside ball dimension might be giving it nice free movement to feel, but also seems to make it less durable than most any other brand, at least from our brief testing so far. As a result, it gets a 2 here for the lowest score for actually breaking in half, which can at best be a bit scary and at worst sharp and perhaps bloody. A 1 would be like never getting a torque reading from it at all because it breaks right away. If we sort these by efficiency of transferring the torque from your impact, losing the least from using a swivel, which is a big deal. Imagine putting extensions on this too. You're like half of where you started torque-wise. We get an ordering like so. Snap-on, then Capri, and if we look at mainly sockets that got 9s and 10s for durability, then it's Snap-on, Nanos, Gearwrench, and Matco. 2 pairs at very different ends of the pricing spectrum. Pleasantly surprised at the Gearwrench compared to their X-Core design. These seem like a way better option. And this set going to 22mm without skips is a rare win as well, so if you're looking for a full size range, it's a great option. Nano are by far the lowest cost pinless option here for sure, and Snap-on somehow doing Snap-on things again with both shocking performance and even more shocking prices. Maybe we should be used to it. Appreciate you joining us for this sort of summary of our findings over the last couple of years testing these. If we missed like 10 of your favorites, would be happy to buy more. Thanks for watching.